Mic check, mic check. There we go. All right. Hope everyone is enjoying the event. Our next speaker is Mel Choyce. She'll be talking about getting creative with block patterns. Just a reminder, I want to ask everyone to turn their phones off. We will have a Q&A. And if you wanted to speak to Mel afterwards, you can continue the conversation at the Happiness Lounge. Also a reminder, there is an after party. We would love to see everyone there. Without further ado, here is Mel.
Wow, it has been a long time since I've been on a stage. I hope you all are having a good morning. I'm Mel Choyce. I'm a core contributor and committer. I led the 3.7 release, and I worked on some default themes. Today, I want to talk to you about block patterns. Just kind of a show of hands, who's already played around with block patterns? Okay, cool, great. So just for those of you who are new, block patterns are combinations of blocks that are used to form layouts that you could just drop into your site. So let's talk about creating a website using just block patterns, nothing custom. So I set up this demo site using pre-existing block patterns. I didn't actually have to build anything from scratch. Most of what I just did was replace the content and the images. In some cases, I did really minor design tweaks, like changing font sizes, just to work better with this particular theme. And I just got rid of any content that I didn't need. I used 2022 as a base. And the only customizations to the site were pre-made styles that were actually provided by the site editor. So this is a site that uses 0 code customizations, 0 plugins. It is just stock WordPress. I'll just do that again real fast so folks can see. So this is great for me because I do as little code as possible as a designer. My ideal is just to jump into WordPress and build something and not have to worry about fussing with the customizer, fussing with any sort of custom CSS, adding a bunch of plugins, and just even playing with this. It's been probably a couple months since I've really built a lot of stuff in the editor, and even in that few months, I feel like there's been a lot of really good improvements that I really enjoyed when I was putting these demos together. So I'm gonna look at each of these patterns individually really quickly so we can just kind of know what parts are patterns. Oh, so okay. So this first one it's this text with an offset image. So I use this as a featured section to highlight specific exhibitions in my art museum website. The second pattern I had on the page is just a really large paragraph. It's inside of a container, so it could have its own background image, and so I can adjust the padding. It's really great for things like about sections, mission statements, any sort of come read me. I also included this pattern. It's an image with title and subtitle. I use this pattern twice with different images and text to highlight more exhibitions on my site. And this one was cool because it's a media and text block, so I can like swap the image and text side with just like one click. So this section is one more pattern. It has 2 columns of text. So the pattern I used for this actually already had the kind of content I wanted, so I didn't change anything. So this I just dropped in and like called it a day and moved on. And then last up, I had this call to action pattern at the bottom of the page. And I was able to get all of these patterns directly from the WordPress pattern directory. So it's a repository of community crowdsourced designs and layouts that anyone can use for free on any WordPress website. So it's very similar to the themes and plugin directory. So the pattern directory, it lives on WordPress.org. You can search for patterns using keywords, or you can browse through pre-selected categories like columns or headers. You can also browse by recent or popular patterns. So it's cool because you can see like what everyone else really likes, but then also you can still like see kind of the newest and latest. Like plugins, you can also favorite patterns, so you can easily find them again later. Because there's already like a bunch of patterns, so it gets a little hard if you have to search. So I've been favoriting all the ones I really like so I can find them again. It's really great if you're kind of making your own collections of patterns that you can reuse on multiple sites. So if you like have one you want to put on like you're building, say, like 5 sub-sites for a university, for example. You favorite the ones that you know you're going to want to include, and then it's just that much easier to find them and drop them in again later. So when you select a pattern in the directory, you're brought to this details page. It lets you preview the pattern at different screen sizes. So there's this toggle up there that says full. You can swap just to like basic sizes, or you can actually manually grab those toggles and drag them to get like the full range, which is good if you're on like a super big screen too and you just want to be able to like preview that and see if it works at a large size. There's also this copy button. So what it does when you press it is it actually saves the block markup to your clipboard, and then you can paste it directly into any WordPress poster page. And it's like smart. It just like knows what to do. So when you paste it into your editor, just like directly into the visual editor, you don't need to like switch over to the text editor. It just renders it without you needing to like install or configure anything. And one really good thing about the pattern directory is that it uses all the default blocks in WordPress. Like you can't like, currently you can't like be like, oh, I want this like custom block. So anything you copy from the pattern directory, you can paste into any like stock WordPress install. You don't have to worry about like making sure you have the right plugins installed. So let's just compare the patterns that I copied over from the pattern directory with the demo site that I ended up with. And it is like very similar. I changed some of the colors just to like fit with the theme. Some of the content I changed, and some of it I just removed because it wasn't relevant. But it took like very little time and effort to go from the left side to the right, to what you see in my demo. It was also really fun to put together. So you can also add some patterns directly from the post and page editor itself without needing to like jump onto WordPress.org. So there's in the like plus button where you go to add blocks, there's also this patterns panel. And so this includes any patterns that are packaged with the theme you're using, as well as some that are like featured from WordPress.org itself. If you're building a custom theme for your clients, you can package your own patterns and even restrict them to just using the patterns that you included. It's great if you're building sites that you expect your clients to change and adapt and like add pages to in the future, but you still need to provide them structured designs for them to follow so they don't kind of like do whatever. Also, if you're building themes to like distribute publicly, you can make them stand out by packaging your own curated patterns that just like work beautifully with your theme styles. And so that's a really good way to like stand out amongst the crowd, especially since themes is such kind of a competitive landscape. So if you've used 2022 a bunch, you may have noticed that my header and footer weren't the default header and footer that are active when you turn the theme on. So 2022, it comes packaged with like a lot of patterns, but it also comes with some header and footer patterns that you can swap out, in addition to like kind of like the general post and page patterns it comes with. So you can change these designs from the new WordPress site editor. If you click on your header up there, you get the little menu that pops up. You can click replace, and it brings up this modal that has all of the header patterns for the theme, which is also good because it means you don't need to dig through like every single pattern that the theme packages. You can be like, oh cool, just the header ones. And so it's like a really easy and fast way to be able to customize your site. I did it also with the footer. So using patterns like this is just a good way to, build a site quickly without any custom templating. Patterns in the site editor like already solve so many of my WordPress use cases. Like when I'm building a site, I'm usually just like putting a site together like real fast. If I'm like volunteering with like a nonprofit or like a campaign, those are like most of the sites that I kind of do in my free time. They're like always like pretty straightforward, kind of like brochure sites, informational. They might have like a donation feature that's like a third-party thing, but for the most part, I could just use the blocks in WordPress and not have to worry about using like a full like site builder plugin. I feel like it's made my life much easier, and the sites I've made much nicer looking by default. So there's been like a lot of instances in the past where a theme has been like almost perfect for what I need, if only I could easily change this or that, and then I spend like 24 hours trying to like change something stupid that I probably should have just been like, whatever. But now I've been finding that like I don't hit that anymore because it is so customizable. So if I only wanted to change the header and footer and everything else about the theme is perfect, I can actually do that now. So the WordPress site editor makes this really easy. It's pretty new, and I hope that you have a chance to play with it soon because I've really been enjoying it. So as I previously mentioned, the pattern directory is made up of community design patterns. So anyone with a WordPress.org account can submit a pattern just so long as it follows the guidelines. And the guidelines are like, don't spam or put like anything bad. So I'm gonna take a look at another demo site that I built entirely from scratch. I mean, I used 2022 still, but all the patterns are from scratch. So this demo uses patterns that I designed, and then I ended up submitting to the pattern directory. It's a very simple, small e-commerce site landing page. It has 4 unique patterns. So as I mentioned, I'm still using 2022 as the base, but I'm actually using a different set of the theme-provided styles that you can change out in the site editor. So it just changes like the fonts and colors. Gives it kind of like a different palette. Once again, I did change up the header and footer, and those were theme-provided. But otherwise, everything on the page I just built directly in Gutenberg. So this first pattern is a featured section. It has an image, heading, a paragraph, and then a button meant to link off to like your site collection. So let's just take a look at how I made this pattern. Instead of using a media and text block, which like I might do in some cases, I opted for columns, just so I had like a little bit more control, and so I can make the image full height. And so I added my columns, and then I have a cover block on the left, which is where I added my image. I ended up turning off the opacity on this because I just wanted the image. I don't want any text on that one. I made the whole thing full width, and then added my content to the right column. And so when I did this, I just like copied and pasted from my existing one, so I didn't have to type slowly in my demo videos. Or do a live. I definitely would make a lot of typos. Is anyone else having like unending allergy issues this year? Yeah, it's been pretty bad. So once I had my content in here, I was able to center it. There's the columns block is cool because it has the alignment. So you could like align it to the center or the bottom of the container, and it just like adjusts based on the height of the container, so you don't need to worry about like spacing at all. I also added a background onto the like container of the whole thing, so I didn't need to worry about like spacing or anything. You probably could add the background directly onto that right column if you like do remove all the spacing, which you can actually do now, which is awesome with the block spacing property. But just in this case, I was like, okay, I'll just put it on the container. It's easier that way. I don't need to worry about it. But either way should work. And in this case, because I added padding to the right column, it like did some box model stuff. And so I ended up just making the left column like 1% wider to make it a little more like half and half. My next pattern was inspired by one already in the directory, but I wanted to adjust it. I wanted to adjust the overall spacing. I wanted to add a container. So I ended up making my own version, but it's like a pretty simple pattern. It's just like a heading block and then 4 columns with images. So I ended up like adding some extra padding onto the container and a little extra padding onto the images, which honestly, I kind of did just because I wanted to adjust the image size and I didn't want to like futz with changing the image size. And I thought it was a little easier just to add padding. So you can like get away with all these little hacks, and it actually like works okay. You don't end up having to like, I don't know. I find that sometimes I end up writing overly complex CSS and then I like shoot myself in the foot later when I'm like, oh no, why did I do this? If I change something, everything breaks. And so thus far, like I haven't encountered that yet. So it's been pretty stable. I think honestly, it's making better CSS than I write. Cool. So we have our little like testimonial logo block. Oh yeah, and then the last thing I did was I just grouped it so I could add some more spacing. So this next pattern is just a simple text about section. So this one has a heading, separator block, spacer block, paragraph, spacer block, and then link. And the like stuff inside the container are grouped into the new stack block, which allows you to create rows inside of a container that flow vertically. There's also a new row block that lets you like kind of like do columns, but in like a flex boxy way. I haven't played around enough to like really discover its power, but the demo I've seen on like the WordPress news blogs have been really cool. So I ended up adding spacer onto my container here, just because I want kind of like that kind of big effect, and so like kind of the more spacing the better here. One thing I'm still kind of figuring out is the best way to approach kind of these like big gaps and things. So I've been relying a lot on spacers. I think in this case I just did like pixels, but you can also do percentages or M's. I think you could do like view height, which at least like makes it nice and responsive and like proportional rather than like just using pixels. But I think in this case I just opted for speed. So please forgive me. And it's funny just like thinking about how I would have achieved this before we had the block editor. And it's like, I don't know, a lot of custom code. Some empty divs, really bad practices. Yeah. So my last pattern is just these two images side by side that link off to different shop categories on the site. So I rely on my favorite blocks, which are columns and cover blocks, for this particular pattern. With columns, it's nice, because you can change the positioning of the text. So once I added my images and then my text, I was able to just like plop it down to the bottom. And what I also just did was remove the spacing between the columns so that they're flush and you don't need to worry about removing any spacing like with CSS, which is also a thing I used to do a lot in the customizer. I also really like cover because you have that like 100 view height option. And it's just like smart. Yeah, so I can also do things like change the font size, the line height. I really like the text options now because as a designer, I am going to be futzing with like literally everything. So I can make sure I have like full control of the line height when I'm adding like random custom stuff like this, which is also really great when you're adding just like a big paragraph. Like I don't necessarily want it to have the same spacing because the font sizing is so much larger. I want to like tighten it up just a little bit. And like now I can do that without having to add any sort of like custom class onto that. And so I just like really enjoyed being able to work on these like this. So I've submitted these designs to the pattern directory, and I want to show you how you can too. I'm gonna make a pattern live and submit it, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I have two designs that I want to run by you all. So this first one is kind of this like punchy design. It has multiple columns and different media types. The second one like looks a little more simple, but I think it's just going to be like as complex to build. So what I'm going to have you do is have you all choose which one I'm going to do. If you think I should do A, the purple one, raise your hand. Okay. If you think I should do B, raise your hand. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of Bs. Let's do it. Okay. I'm gonna just switch to mirroring my display really quickly. Cool, okay. So I am on wordpress.org. I am already logged in. You'll wanna log in before you do anything. So there's this new patterns tab in the header, and it brings you to the directory. You can look at your favorites. There's a lot of really cool ones that I've already favorited. You can look at your patterns. So a couple of the ones that I built, this like half and half one, the 4 logos, the heading with the text, and this columns of products. I ended up doing 3 columns for like the pattern that I built here. And then you can make a new pattern. So what it does is it opens up just like the block editor inside of the pattern directory. You could add a title. There's like some meta information. I'm going to ignore the title and meta stuff just for now while I build, and then add it at the end. I usually add my title at the end because I don't know what I'm building until I build it. So, okay. So what I did is that I made these in Figma real fast. And so what I see here is I have a background color on this container. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add a group block. It's going to be full width. Copy over my color. I'm going to have it inherit the default layout of the site. So what it does is it just uses, when you add stuff inside of it, you can still choose wide or full, and it'll use the right widths as defined by your theme. So we'll add in that background color. Nope, I did that wrong. Cool, okay. So we have some spacing here. So it looks like I did one, I don't know, let's just add something and see how it looks. Okay, so padding. I usually just change my padding to M's. Let's do, what does 4 look like? Let's do 8. Let's do 6. This is everything I do is just playing around until it looks right. Okay, so now I know that I have 2 columns. They're slightly different sizes. This is a little funky. Kelly, can you fix this? Okay, I'm just gonna do 50-50 for now, and then I'll change it. So I know that this one is a cover block because I have text in it. Well, this one can probably just be an image, or I'll probably do a cover for both. Okay, so what is different than a typical WordPress site right now is that it actually opens up an image selector from Openverse. This is so you can't add just any image, including copyrighted stuff. So everything it's pulling in is free to use, either public domain or CC0. And so it pulls it from Openverse, which is, so it started off being the Creative Commons media search, got acquired by WordPress, and now lives on WordPress.org. And it's very nice, especially for those of us who do have to use CC0 and public domain stuff. It's done some good curation, so you're getting nicer results now than when it was on CC search. And so it's built into now the pattern directory as well. So I ended up looking on Openverse for these images just so I didn't have to worry about spending the next hour trying to find the right image, which is kind of what I usually do. So I'm gonna just search this small cactus pot. Hopefully it'll come up. Yes, okay, beautiful. And so in this case, I also did get rid of this overlay. Okay, so I have it up and to the left. I'll paste this in, left align, grab this hex code. Okay, so let's position this up here. Okay, so let's try 2 M's, see how that goes. Not percent. Actually, I could probably just do 2, for everything. Okay, yeah, that'll probably work. And then for this one, let's go for rubber plant, see if that comes up. How slow is the internet? Okay, cool. I've had a couple times too where the Openverse API kind of pauses out and I just need to close and then do it again. But it usually fixes itself by the next time I do that. I feel like it's probably just like a traffic thing. Oh, you know what? And I was going to make that, let's make that, I'm going to choose the appearance. So this toggle over here lets you add more of the like font display things, and a bunch of the categories have those. Like you can like hide things or add them as needed. So they're not like everything is there by default. Okay, let's do bold. And I think this just taps into like whatever the theme provides. So if your theme doesn't have like a full range of widths, it might not work. But yeah, that's something you just kind of have to play around with once you paste it in. Okay, so I have this. Let's change these widths a little bit. Actually, I'm going to open this. I really love the list view. It's gotten really good now too, because you can drag and drop things. So like you can rearrange without needing to like find the handle, which I find really helpful once I start like packing everything in. Okay, so I have this columns. I'm gonna do another set of columns. Oh, I was gonna change these widths. I just do percentages just for like convenience. Let's do 60%. Let's do 55%. Okay. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll make it. Make it 55% so they're equal. Okay, cool. Let's grab my text. And so what I'm seeing here is I have it offset a little bit. I don't know if I want to align it to the right of the container, or maybe I'll just use padding, and we'll see how that goes. And that was also bold. Oh no, medium. So this is kind of silly. I like still end up selecting the text even though I don't need to, because it does it on the block level. But I'm like, oh no, I gotta select my text. Okay, so we'll change the text color. And if I was doing this site, I would actually change this default palette in the site editor so I don't need to find the text codes every time. And okay, let's add some padding. Let's see what happens if I do 2 and 1. That's wrong. 1 and 2. 1 and 3. Okay, that's probably good enough. And then I have a button over here, which is C plans. I want outline. I'm going to decrease the text size. And where's my border radius? I don't want a border radius. I ended up making it, nope, yeah, a little bit wider. I might just actually change the padding rather than changing the width. Oh yeah, my text color. All right, so let's change up the padding. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's probably good. Okay, and I'm gonna add some spacing to the columns block itself. So I have 80 pixels-ish here. I'll do M's, and then I'll do the same amount of top and bottom. Yeah, that's probably good. Cool. Okay. Let's preview it. Let's save draft, and then preview up here. Okay. I mean, I feel like that kind of works. I'm good with it. The only thing I might change is this text. So I might just adjust the padding on it. Oh, I didn't. I thought I did at some point. Oh, yeah, because I did it in the cover. This is also kind of a fun thing, is figuring out where you did things. Okay, let's adjust the font size. I just don't like having the like one word on its own line. Okay, and I don't know, maybe yeah, we'll do 42. 42 is a fortuitous number. Change my line height. It's probably good. What did I have here? I had 110. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm happy with this. Okay, what should I call this? This is always the hardest part of making a pattern, is like figuring out what to name it. Yeah. Pot. So I think I might do something that's like a little more descriptive. Okay, so 2 columns of images with text and button. I mean, this is like I'm naming all of them like this. No. I feel like there isn't like a good kind of like best practice yet for naming things. So the description is just describing. It's like alt text for the pattern. So I'm gonna say 2 columns with images. The first image has text over it. Underneath is another 2 columns, one with text and one with a button. Let's say an outlined button. Okay, so looking at the categories, so columns, it has images. I feel like those are kind of like the 2 big things. Since there's only the 1 button and like the text is kind of supporting this top area, I think I might just use these 2. But you can like, it's pretty flexible. It's just kind of like, what do you think people would expect to find when they go to those categories? And then like keywords, I'm gonna do WordCamp Montclair. Let's do 2 columns. Button. I'll add button to the keywords. Any other keywords you all think I should do? I'll do potted plants. That's a good one. Any other keywords? Call to action. That's a great one. Yeah, that's a good one too. That's probably good for now. Cool. Okay, so I have my title, description, my categories, my keywords. I feel like I am good to submit this. All right, so you get this like publish thing that's just like, check the guidelines. Like, don't add a million placeholder, like don't write like a whole blog post, essentially. And then just like try to use a descriptive name for pattern. So next, it just makes sure that I entered this title and description, and then also make sure I added the categories. And so boom, it's submitted. So it goes into pending review, and then somebody from the theme directory or the theme team, question mark? Okay, yeah, the theme team will review it just to make sure it follows guidelines and then publish it. And so far, like mine have been published pretty quickly. So yeah, that's it. I made a pattern. All right, let's do some Q&A. All right, I'm gonna have people come up to the microphone so they get recorded into the live stream. I'm just gonna go back and unmirror and put up my Q&A slide because I'm fancy. Okay, cool. Yes, question.
Hello. So what if you wanted to have a whole like zip so that every website you build, you can like just upload all of your patterns? Can you do that? Like,
Probably. So
like,
you can include them in the theme itself,
Okay.
in the like functions.php, I think, or maybe theme.json. I actually haven't built a theme in like a year, but you can like package them directly into the theme itself, and then you can just like store them in a zip, and then just like pop them into every theme you make.
Okay.
And I think you just need to do like an add supports, and it's pretty quick. It's like 3 lines or something. So.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
I was just wondering in terms of best practices, for instance, the right image had a text over it which you could replace with anything you want.
Mhm.
But to me, from where I was sitting, the contrast was so minimal. If I was like flying by it, I might not even notice that
Yeah.
it was there
Yeah.
to replace over, with whatever.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the image that you choose, like how the contrast ends up being. And that's one of the reasons the cover block has that overlay. So you can like add like a dark overlay with light text. You can add like a light overlay with dark text just to make sure that you do have enough contrast between the image and the text. But that's one of those things you'll need to do once you're making your site and using the pattern, because it is so dependent on the like kinds of content that you're putting there that it's like kind of up to like the site builder to like make sure that contrast is okay.
No, I mean, the reason I just mentioned it was I would think to start out with, you would want it to pop out so the person using your pattern would know, hey, here's a place I got to change.
Yeah, yeah.
That they, because subliminally they may not even realize it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that like could just be something to improve in the design when I'm like making the pattern. Yeah. Thank you. Hi.
So I can use blocks and patterns on an old theme that I created 3 years ago with no problem. But I'm wondering what makes a theme block enabled or a block-based theme?
So I think it uses the theme.json to define like all the different supports. Yeah, I think that's it. I actually don't know that I have a great answer. I would end up looking at the documentation. I always end up like referencing either documentation or some of like beginner theme builder tutorials. It's changed a lot over the past like 2 years. So I feel like every time I'm looking at it, it's like I have to like go back and check.
So
But I think it's a little more stable now.
I think basically you have to prepare your theme to do without a customizer and
Yeah, I think so.
other legacy features.
Yeah, and so like one thing that is good about like the default themes is that you could just like take them and change them and like make them kind of like a base for your next theme. And there's a couple other themes that people have done that are block based that are kind of like meant more for building on top of like the underscores theme used to be. So I feel like if I was starting now, I would probably take 2022, fork it rather than like child theme it. And then just like clear out the theme.json and add my own styles.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you. I work with a multi-site installation, and we have design standards that we need to adhere to for the university. Is there a way to create reusable blocks, like have a page of copyable blocks that you don't access the WordPress.org for?
Yeah, so you can include them in your theme itself, and it'll show up in that like pattern picker in the editor. If you wanted a documentation page, I'm pretty sure you could probably like custom code that too. If you just wanted like a page where somebody could go and like reference and quick copy things. That could be kind of a cool idea if you have like a style guide page to just be like, also here's the patterns, you can copy them. But that would probably end up being like a custom PHP page in WordPress. Thanks. Cool. Man, we ended like right on time. Thank you, everyone.